Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Ord. Week 5 in the SEC after a fantastic Week 4 across all of college football. We got some good matchups in Week 5 as well. Several ranked teams facing off, and then just several other intriguing matchups. We can start off with the game. It's not taking place in this state, but it has to do with the team in this state. The Georgia Bulldogs travel to Auburn. It's Carson Beck's first true. Is it actually just his first road game? I think it might just be his first road. It's regardless. It's the first true road game in front of an environment that is going to be as hostile as he will face throughout his entire career at the University of Georgia. It doesn't matter if it's now, a year ago, a year later, whatever. This will be an incredibly hostile environment. I will say I saw the spread on this game. Very surprising. Only 2 touchdowns. I think it's now up to 14.5 in favor of Georgia. But listen, we watched Auburn this last week against Texas A&M, and this is a team with no quarterback play, shoddy offensive line play, no offensive identity. I just don't know how they score on Georgia. And this line, to me, Georgia hasn't covered a spread all season. They haven't looked great. They've started slow. This is an incredibly tough place to play, and it's going to be Carson Beck's first. I could see how people think it's going to be ugly. I just have a hard time believing that Auburn scores enough to keep this close.
Yeah, a few thoughts on all this. The reason why it's only 2 touchdowns is because Jordan Hare is spooky. If you haven't been there, it's one of the most underrated environments in the entire country. It's one of the most hostile environments in the SEC. It doesn't get enough credit for how loud it gets in there, especially when the Georgia Bulldogs come to town. They are getting up for this game. This is their Super Bowl. Carson Beck is going to have to settle it down quickly. They're going to have to figure out something, silent snaps, hand signals, because you're not going to be able to hear anything in Jordan Hare. With that being said, on paper, I mean, Georgia should roll. They should roll. Last week, all season long, we've been talking about when's the offense going to come? When's the offense? The defense is there. Last week against UAB, the offense showed up and the defense was terrible. The defense was absolutely terrible. Couldn't stop a nosebleed. UAB was all over him. But then again, Carson Beck still missed several big-time explosive throws that he cannot miss. Now, it's not going to come back to bite him in this game, but it will eventually come back to bite him. Carson Beck did play, and Bobo and the entire offense played much better against UAB than they had in the prior weeks, but the defense let up. Georgia has yet to play 4 quarters of complimentary football. I still think they probably roll throughout Auburn, even if they don't again, just because of based on talent alone. Auburn we saw Auburn against A&M just get outgunned, outmanned. I mean, it
on both sides of the ball.
A&M should have beaten them by 4 or 5 touchdowns, honestly, and they just couldn't get out of their own way.
I mean, if Georgia can get anything going offensively, they should blow this game out of the water. I mean, Auburn has no passing attack. If they can get up, if they can get a lead, it should get ugly fast. I mean, we should see turnovers. And I know I predicted all of Georgia's game on an article before the season. And I had this game coming down to the wire. I think I had this game, Georgia winning by 7 points or something, for all the reasons. Jordan Hare is spooky. I like Hugh Freeze. But after watching Auburn through 4 weeks, my opinion's totally flipped. Like the team, and this is no disrespect to Hugh Freeze. I mean, he's his first year there, but they don't have the guys in the building to compete with the big dogs. They just do not. So unless Georgia goes out there and lays an egg and looks almost worse than they did against South Carolina, I have a hard time believing that this game stays close, because if they can get any sort of offense going to where they can, even if they pull ahead 14-0 or 14-3 at halftime, they're going to put Auburn in a position where they have to make plays with their arms and that quarterback, and they just do not have that, and they don't have the protection to do that either. So to me, it should be a one-sided game. I think Georgia, Kirby Smart's going to have his guys ready. He's going to have them ready for the atmosphere that they're going to have to face. And you can't replicate that, but he knows that place better than anyone. He knows not to take this team lightly. And frankly, this is the first real game of Georgia's I guess South Carolina, but this is the game where people think you're going to get tested. And I just think, this is the spread, I have Georgia covering handily, because eventually they're going to cover and look right. And it's more not about Georgia. I don't think Georgia's looked great on any side of the ball. They haven't played a full 4 quarters. There's no doubt about that. There's questions about offense. The defense isn't as dominant as it has been. But Texas A&M's defense got lit up by Miami for 50 points, and Auburn couldn't score, couldn't do anything. The only touchdown they got was on a fumble return for a touchdown. I mean, there were times where Auburn started at the 50-yard line.
They went 3 and out
and didn't score a point. Like this is a bad offense. I mean, and then you go even further. You watch the Auburn game against Cal, who just got lit up by Washington, and we respect Washington. Washington scored 50-something points against Cal. Auburn couldn't do anything. I mean, they couldn't do anything against Cal. So this offense is bad, and it's not just a little bit bad. It's terrible. So if Georgia shows up to play, especially defensively, I think Auburn has a really tough time of scoring it all. And then Carson Beck just has to make a few plays. I don't expect it to be sexy. They're not going to win sexy now.
This feels
you want to. No.
Yeah, I'll wrap up with final minute. Yeah, this feels like a very ugly, 24-3, 27-7 game where it was like it was never in hand, but it was for Auburn, you were never close, but Georgia, left a lot of points out there because it's going to be the first couple drives are going to be hard for Georgia to get anything going. It's going to be loud. Beck is not going to be able to hear anything in that building. So really, the first couple drives we shouldn't even pay attention to if I'm a Georgia fan. It's all about just getting things going on the ground and getting Beck in a rhythm. That's all the first couple drives are for. And then once the crowd quiets down, it's trying to put some drives together.
Yeah, I that's exactly how I see it. 27-7, 27-3. I don't think it's sexy, but I do think it's dominant, and it's more because Auburn's going to look so ugly offensively. It's going to be offensive. Coming up after the break, we'll break down the rest of the SEC Week 5.